Thank you very much. I think you're absolutely right. I think as environmentalists, we've become a bit afraid of championing those values, and we've sort of tended to lapse into the language of corporates and GDP and everything else. But maybe that's what we need to do. We need to go out there and really sell the values of justice and equity because they're right. So thank you for that. So Professor Pan.
Well, the speakers have made their views very clearly, and some of them are related to value, judgment, and justice. And here, I think that there are some probably perceptions we need to clarify. When we talk about justice or rights, we need to make a distinction between emission rights and sort of development rights. What we need is not really emission. Emission is nothing. So now we have electricity, energy services. Emission is nothing. We don't need the emission. What we need is energy services. In that sense, that we need development rights instead of emission rights. But these two concepts are very different. Give you some more technical analysis. And 1 ton of emission in one country its productivity is very different from 1 ton of emission in another country. So there are huge differences. There's 1 ton of emission, but the productivity is very different. And then if you look historically, 100 years earlier, 1 ton of emission could produce very little than we would have today. So probably we need to make it very clear that what we want is development rights instead of emission rights. And in that case, there's huge scope for us to work together so that we have development instead of emissions. So this is one perception we probably need to clarify. The second one is that when we talk about low carbon revolution, I think that many people talk about it, and there's also a conceptual misunderstanding. When we talk about the industrial revolution, information revolution, every revolution, this sort of technology-led, sort of expansionary revolution. You have more wealth, more opportunities, and the low carbon revolution is very different. It's somewhat contractive or somewhat restrictive revolution. There is a limit, there is a cap on carbon emissions. So this is somewhat very different. And given this specific feature of low carbon revolution, we need to require or ask the rich guys taking the lead and demonstrate without pointing at the poor. You go a low carbon path of development. Because the rich guys, they have the opportunity, they have the all the means to go a step further than the poor guys. So if we talk about low carbon revolution, there is really a need that the rich guys should take the lead. And including the rich guys, I do not mean only the rich countries, but also the rich guys in the poor countries. In China, the rich guys are so rich, I think that they should do something. I'm not sure, Mr. Abbas, because in Indonesia, you must be among the rich guys. I'm not sure you would like to take the lead.
I don't know if any of our panelists want to respond to that.
I think, Professor Pan, I heard you yesterday, and today I couldn't agree with you more. I think there's a certain historical responsibility that developed countries have by virtue of their 200 years of emission since the Industrial Revolution days, and the fact that they occupy 80%, almost 70 or 80% of the accumulated emissions so far, and to allow the rest of us, in a way, to catch up in development. And I think the point was made very well, that development is human development in its basic sense in terms of people being able to access medical services, education, means of governance, and all of that. These are not, we're not talking development in terms of glitzy shopping malls and fancy cars and things like that. The basic needs of of human society. So your point is, I couldn't agree with you more, and in fact that has been the negotiating position also, and the environmental activist position also of both China and India. But I think we've got to, my personal feeling is that we've got to go beyond these stated positions. Because as right as we are on a per equity basis, or on a per capita basis, on a per human being basis, etc., etc., the fact is that if India and China don't pull their weight now, and don't do something which is above and beyond the call of duty, and above and beyond what is mandated of them through their through formal means, I think the problem is not going to go away. It's going to come back and haunt us. It's going to affect the development of China. It's going to affect the development of India, the development of the poorest in India, and the development of the poorest in China. So I think there is a reasonable, a very genuine, intense reason for both countries and other developing societies as well to raise their bar beyond what they agree or want to agree formally in negotiations. The problem that I see it is exactly this, that this whole process has been hijacked by formal negotiations, by cross accusations, by labels, by extreme shrill rhetoric, and also by drama. The president of Maldives, as well-wishing as he is, has his cabinet meeting submarine. I mean, I don't know what good that did. What did that prove? I mean, there's got to be some sense of balance and perspective and reasonableness, and a sense of modesty even in the outrage that you express. You should not get carried away in your outrage. You should not be bowled over by your own sense of celebrity, intellectual. You should not become legends in your own mind. And I think that is exactly what's happening with a lot of our activists. We have lost the sense of reasonable reaching out to people, because the minute we have these debates, there's always cross accusations, and we're already labeling each other. Oh, you are at fault, you're at fault, you're at fault. So I think the first thing, I don't know about, and I like Cormac's point about values and behavior. I think we have to start with behavior. And I couldn't agree with you more in that values are long term. I think we have to do both. We have to look at both ends. Values are the hardware, that's long term. We have to change that. But we have to, behavior is a long term. But values are the long term, sorry. We have to do that. That's the software. We have to look at the software also. But we have to have a more immediate solution in terms of changing behavior. People copy each other, they emulate each other. And as Cormac rightly said, people don't go to war. They go to war for mother and pride and history and family. They don't go to war for sustainable development. I mean, nobody wants to. These terms and these cliches that activists and all of us benefit from and have immersed ourselves in, we need to change this. We need to change, and to catch people's attention and imagination. I mean, this debate has to go beyond these rooms. And to do that, we have to have a whole new set of language, a whole new set of tools, a whole new set of, we have to open up our hearts to people. I think also there's a huge issue of democracy involved in this. The climate change, I don't know how it was in Copenhagen, I suspect it was very undemocratic. But even within individual countries, especially in the largest democracy in the world, India, the whole climate change debate has been extremely undemocratic. It's been limited to a few policy elites I can count on my fingertips. Nobody else has discussed it except 5-10 people in smoke-filled, cigar-filled rooms. And they decide the future of India's negotiating position. I think there's a real cause can be made for bringing back the local and doing away with some of the global that we have been so obsessed and focused. We should look at local best practices, what local communities are doing. We should make them powerful. We should give them power. We should make them accountable for some of the incremental organic steps they can take to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And I think those best practices need to be shared across borders.
Well, thank you, Professor Park. I did enjoy your very insightful presentation yesterday. Well, that's true. That's a kind of a new value should be made, should be translated into real action. What we have at the moment, and this morning, General Retired Michael from National Security of U.S. Well, there was big competition to natural resources, global competition to energy, competition to water, competition to food, to all, well, basic necessity of life. But these scarce resources created a huge gap between the developed world and underdeveloped world. The North and the South, yes, the rich and the poor. This dichotomy creating a global insecurity. So, well, you're worrying so much what's the implication with this change, climate change. It's a kind of a social shock, a cultural shock. But the way to respond it, this is very dangerous. Yes, there's a competition to allocate huge amount of budget for military. So look at the US, for instance. Almost half of their budget goes to defense and security. Look at China. I don't know, maybe approaching $100 billion for military. Look at Middle East, all their budget for military. Look at the South Asia, including Indonesia. So now the question is this the answer to respond to new challenging realities? What is the future of our children? US is the pioneer for this, a good example for how to anticipate this insecurity, that allocate only 1-2% for education, for health. Pakistan, only 1% for education and health, but 39% for military. I found many countries did not allocate even 1% for humanities. Means that what is the future of our grandchildren? So I think this is the new path of our human history. This is the time to contemplate in reflection here in the city of Hong Kong. So can we make something to say, hey, White House, hi, President Yudhoyono, hi, the king of the world, that come on, a new path should be made. As a new value should be translated into real action, not to misbehave with the future of young generation. And I think this commitment should be made now. And if not, I think we, well, move from back to wars.